Well, you did pretty good for yourself because obviously you won the Divas Championship. But I don't know if you checked this out, but a few months ago, WWE put out this, I guess, this documentary, if you want to do it, or this program. It was the 50 greatest women's wrestlers. And did you see this? You're number 49 on it, on the
I
list.
did not see that. No way.
Yeah, so out of the 50 greatest women's wrestlers, that's the name of it. You're number 49.
Wow. I
Yeah,
did not know
you
that. Oh
didn't.
my God. Is it a good, did you watch the documentary?
I didn't watch all of it. I watched the beginning, and like I said, like Kaitlyn, like you were there, number 49. I'm like, oh, sweet.
Wow.
And then, but AJ Lee, which was your greatest rival, she's number 19 on that list.
Wow. Who's
Eh,
number one?
Oh, I think, Trish,
Yeah, of course.
of
Of
course.
course. Wow.
But
That's so cool. What an honor. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that.
yeah, because before the NXT season 3, the all women's, as you just said, that's when y'all were still being preferred to as divas.
Yes. Yeah.
But you and AJ, did y'all realize that y'all were, I guess, part of the beginning of this women's revolution that was happening?
Well, it's what we wanted. Like, the this is like such an interesting or like important part. Like that when they gave me money to go buy stuff so I could wear it on TV. So I didn't have anything. That's all the stuff that I bought to debut in. They told me I couldn't wear. They're like, that's not like, that doesn't really fit like what we're looking for. So I literally debuted in someone else's dress.
Oh, wow.
I debuted in Naomi's pink sparkly dress, and like literally that really solidified to me that like who I am truly like isn't
Yeah.
what they want. And so I operated for so long under this impression that I had to try to be someone else, right? And so
Yeah.
like I never felt aligned with like the whole persona or the whole idea of like what a diva is. Like I never fit that, and neither did AJ. And so we found so much, our bond was so much of like we felt like we were these outsiders, but we had the ability and like the opportunity to change things
Yeah.
for the women. And like we absolutely paid our dues. Like we got the shit beat out of us a lot on TV, just like as extra bodies and stuff as we were working our way up. And it was there were days like I dreaded going to TV because I felt so out of place. I felt trapped. I'm like, I want to be who I am, but like they're telling me like that's not good enough, or like that's not what we want. So I have to try to be this other thing. And so like for years I tried all these different types of outfits, like these stretchy, sparkly, like shiny stuff. And I'm
Right.
like, I was like, I think this is what they want. And it just never felt right. And I never felt aligned with any of it. And so it was really cool to have AJ, because we really truly were and still are very, very close. Like we
Yeah.
were best friends, and we were like this really cool support for each other. And she was like a huge like inspiration to me because of just like her story and like her talent and like her passion and love for wrestling. And another thing that kind of held me back, I did this to myself, but I was like, because I looked at her and I'm like, she's wanted this her whole life. And I'm like, I haven't. So like, so that kind of helped me back too. So it was really fun to have her. We traveled together, and like we made the really hard days like really fun together.
Yeah.
Like we had each other. And we had all these like cool ideas for storylines and stuff. And like whenever NXT wasn't a reality show anymore and it was just kind of floating, it was like a random show, we had the ability to kind of like write our own stuff and like do what we wanted, which was really cool. And because no one really producer wise, and no one really like cared that much about NXT at that point, because it wasn't aired on TV anymore in the States. It was just overseas, like in some countries. And like, so we really had this cool opportunity to try stuff and just like do stuff that would never normally be approved on SmackDown or Raw or anything.
Right.
So yeah, we tried a lot of different things. Some things stuck, we would try to create our own stuff on Twitter, and sometimes that carried over, and we would go to the announcers and we would try to, or the commentators would go there and say like, this is kind of what we're developing about our characters and stuff, or this is the story we're trying to push. And sometimes they would play along with it, and sometimes they wouldn't. It just depended on what Vince wanted, right? So like what the overall picture was. But I think like it's the perfect example for me, at least, of like kind of keeping yourself in your own prison. Like because I held myself back so much, and I can see it now, but because like I was so afraid to step into who I truly am, or who I felt that I could be as far as like a character, because like I was never like a really small, like Kelly type of girl. And like, that's really what Vince was like, that's all he wanted. It was very old school. And so even when I got hired, they were like, you need to lose weight. And I was like in pretty good shape then. And my weight fluctuated a lot when I was with WWE, because it was such an emotional roller coaster for me. So there was a point where after I had won NXT and I got put on the main roster, but I wasn't on TV at all, because like they just didn't know what to do with me. I was like, well, maybe it's because like I don't look the way like I need to look. So I did this crazy diet, and like I lost a ton of weight, and like I was ripped. I had like abs, veins, and like it didn't make a difference. Like it didn't do anything. So I was like, okay, maybe this isn't good enough. So I kept trying to find ways to be good enough for them to be like, oh, I see you. Like, here's a spot. And so like, I just started creating, I was like, okay, I'm not this, and I'm not like a Beth Phoenix either. I'm like this in between thing. So that's where I started calling myself the hybrid diva, because like I feel like I didn't fit any of these physical body types or characters. And because of the way that like I started in WWE, I didn't have a character. So I was just myself. Right. So I always like was just like, I'm just me. So like the more that I stepped into that, the more that I'm like, okay, well, I'm just me. And if I can just be me, like that's how I will succeed, And then when I started, so Fit Finley was the Divas, like he always helped us on our matches. He was like the diva whisperer. Everybody called him that when we were there. And I remember he got let go, or he had to go on a hiatus, or whatever you want to call it, because something that happened overseas on a tour. And so Fit was gone. And like, while he was gone, we had like a couple people that tried to take over that whole like diva producer spot. Right. And no one really quite fit it, because the internal struggle with the women, we never got any TV time. So what happened, instead of working together as a unit to elevate the women's division, everyone there at that time, when AJ and I were still really new, everyone was just like so much out for themselves and so shitty and so catty. And like, we were holding ourselves down because we couldn't see the bigger picture. And like, and there was so much fighting all the time, so we never got any TV time. We'd always get like 3 to 5 minutes. Yeah. So we never got the ability to put any of our characters over. Like we never got anybody emotionally invested in what we were doing. And because of that it was like a perpetual cycle. That told the producers and Vince and everybody that like the women aren't deserving of more time. So they never gave us more time. So we could never get ahead. And so the girls, they just like didn't see it big picture, and there's so much bullying, and it was just such bullshit. And so when it would come, like whenever we would get the card for the match, and we would see what women's match there was, if it was like a battle royal where everybody got to get in the ring, but no one really got to get any of their moves in or whatever, just depended. But no matter what the match was, or the occasion, there was always internal fighting between like when we're putting the match together. And like, that's why we went through so many producers, because we didn't have Fit, and we felt like Fit was the one who really understood our struggle, like what we were going through, because there really was only one spot. And so everyone, the way they saw it, the women, they were like, well, I can't be nice to you. I can't be friends with you. I can't help you, 'cause like, that's my spot. Right. So like no one elevated each other. Wow. And that's another thing that AJ and I did for each other. We elevated each other. Because like we saw the bigger picture.